The reality is that the terrorism threat has been elevated throughout 2023, but the ongoing war in the Middle East has raised the threat of an attack against Americans in the United States to a whole nother level. Since the horrific terrorist attacks committed by Hamas against innocent people in Israel a few weeks ago, we've been working around the clock to support our partners there and to protect Americans here at home. We assess that the actions of Hamas and its allies will serve as an inspiration, the likes of which we haven't seen since ISIS launched its so-called caliphate several years ago.
Hi again, everyone. It's now 5 o'clock in New York. That was FBI Director Christopher Wray today raising an urgent alarm that the terror attack on October 7th in Israel against Israelis by Hamas will inspire more attacks right here on U.S. soil. Christopher Wray testified before the Senate Homeland Security Committee earlier and stressed that this moment is, quote, a time to be concerned. He outlined the numerous potential sources of future attacks.
Here in the United States, our most immediate concern is that violent extremists, individuals or small groups, will draw inspiration from the events in the Middle East to carry out attacks against Americans going about their daily lives. That includes not just homegrown violent extremists inspired by a foreign terrorist organization, but also domestic violent extremists targeting Jewish or Muslim communities. On top of the homegrown violent extremists and domestic violent extremist threat, we also cannot and do not discount the possibility that Hamas or another foreign terrorist organization may exploit the current conflict to conduct attacks here on our own soil. We have kept our sights on Hamas and have multiple ongoing investigations into individuals affiliated with that foreign terrorist organization.
That warning from the head of the FBI comes as the ADL has recorded a dramatic increase in anti-Semitic incidents in the United States since October 7th, just a little over 3 weeks ago, a 388% increase over last year. Wray provided specific examples of work that his department has already done in tackling threats. He said the FBI arrested a man in Houston last week who was studying how to build bombs and posted online about his support for killing Jews. He also highlighted the brutal killing of a 6-year-old Muslim boy in Illinois earlier this month that his agency is now investigating as a hate crime. Yesterday, DOJ announced that last week it charged a Las Vegas man with threatening to kill Senator Jackie Rosen, who is Jewish, with a series of threatening voicemails, including one that referred to finishing, quote, what Hitler started. Rosen was asked by reporters today how she's doing.
Well, you know, I'm feeling the same as Jews are feeling all around the world, under attack and under threat. Now, I have full confidence in our Department of Justice and law enforcement to work on this case. But frankly, students across the country, K through 12, our college campuses, look at the protests around the world. Jews are feeling under attack.
That increased threat environment right here in the United States follows a terror attack that killed the most Jewish humans since the Holocaust. It's where we begin the hour with former top official in the Justice Department's National Security Division, Mary McCord, and former CIA director, now MSNBC senior national security analyst, John Brennan. Mary, there's something about living through these events, and then there's something different about watching the country's FBI director, a man who speaks seemingly only when he has to and publicly only when forced to, lay out the threat environment as he did today. Your reaction?
Well, what we heard from Director Wray today is what I was expecting we would hear, right? Because this successful in many ways attack by Hamas, right, as you indicated, killing the most Jewish people since the Holocaust, and really in an environment, in a country where the intelligence services really are known for their capacity and their capability to carry out something as successful as that was, from their perspective, of course, as devastating and terrorizing it was, sort of emboldens other actors, whether it is foreign terrorist groups, like Christopher Wray said, or whether it's individuals here inspired by foreign terrorist groups or domestic extremists. We already have had, as we've talked about in many different episodes, Nicole, we've already had such heightened political violence in this country. Anti-Semitic attacks and violence were already up before the October 7th Hamas attack, and now we're up another 388%. But this is also, fodder for anti-Muslim, anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab attacks as well. And so, anytime you see anything like the Hamas attack, that is an emboldening to others, and they maybe see the U.S. as sort of stretched, right? We're operating in Ukraine, we're sending surging forces to support Israel, and they may see vulnerabilities here. Foreign terrorist organizations, of course, John Brennan is better equipped than I am to speak to that. But I would also emphasize, our domestic extremists are every bit as much of a threat to everyday Americans going about their lives as most foreign terrorist organizations, not necessarily in terms of the big dramatic attack like the Hamas attack or like 9/11, but things like we see here on an unfortunately all too regular basis: mass shootings, violent killings like the slaughter of a 6-year-old Palestinian boy. These are the things that are often inspired by this general atmosphere of violence and in some ways an acceptability of violence.
Let me play a little bit more of Christopher Wray on the targeting of the Jewish community here in this country for you, Director Brennan.
I will say that this is a threat that is reaching in some ways sort of historic levels, in part because, as you know all too well, the Jewish community is targeted by terrorists really across the spectrum: homegrown violent extremists, foreign terrorist organizations, both Sunni and Shia, domestic violent extremists, and in fact, our statistics would indicate that for a group that represents only about 2.4% of the American public, they account for something like 60% of all religious-based hate crimes.
I'm not usually blown away by numbers and statistics, but if that doesn't blow you away, I don't know that I knew we lived in a country where a group that makes up 2.4% of the population is the victim of 60% of all religious hate crimes.
Well, Nicole, I think it's a sad commentary in the Times that there's still a lot of sometimes latent anti-Semitism that rises to the surface when you have incidents like we've had recently in Israel and Gaza. And unfortunately, there are too many individuals who are driven by emotion and passion that decide to take out their views in a violent manner. And because we're now 3.5 weeks or so into this clash in Gaza and Israel in this war, and we have many weeks ahead of us, I believe, of death and destruction, I think, as Director Wray said, the Bureau has to believe that this is going to lead to greater incitement and inspiration for individuals to take action, whether it be anti-Semitism, attacks against Jewish or Israeli targets, or against Muslim targets or Palestinian targets, as well as against U.S. targets, given that the U.S. is now playing a very high-profile role in the conflict, and because our support for Israel has generated a lot of criticism and condemnation on the part of some others. And so therefore, I do think that the FBI, as well as local law enforcement, really need to do all they can to remain as vigilant as possible, follow up on leads, and try to prevent these individuals from carrying out acts of violence here on our soil.
Mary, I want to share a few more pieces of data and some things we've gathered with you. ADL recorded a total of 312 anti-Semitic incidents between October 7th, which is the day of the attack in Israel, and the 23rd. 190 of them were directly linked to the war in Israel and Gaza. During the same period a year ago, the ADL received preliminary reports of 64 incidents. This is a tweet today from Fred Guttenberg, friend of the show. We call on him often. We spoke to him last week. He tweets this, quote, "I used to like you. That's the message that I am receiving from a lot of people who I have stood with for years now against violence and hate in all communities across America. Now that I am asking for people to stand against violence and hate directed at Jews, they won't." Sad. What's going on here?
Well, I think one of the things that is going on is people are are conflating things that need to be kept separate. You can be opposed to what Israel is doing now in Gaza and not be anti-Jewish, right? So we can have Palestinian protests that are opposed to the, humanitarian crisis going on right now in Gaza. That does not necessarily mean they are anti-Jewish. You can also be opposed to Hamas, and should be. I think all Americans and all people in the world should be opposed to a foreign terrorist organization like Hamas and be very, very vehemently opposed to their attack on Israel, but doesn't mean you're opposed to all Palestinians. And I think what we're starting to see, unfortunately, at places like college campuses and schools and in other communities is I think some people, not everyone, are failing to appreciate that distinction. And they're lumping, those who are pro-Palestinian with pro-Hamas, those who are Israel, or those who are anti-Israel with anti-Jewish. And I think it's important to keep those things separate, because all we are really going to do is weaken our own national security and weaken our own democracy here in the United States if we feed into and give support or aid to those types of viewpoints. So I think it's really important for our leaders, our leadership, to continue to make that point. And for those who are out protesting and those who are trying to protect their Jewish communities to also keep these things separate.